Yes, we're going to look at books. She loves books almost as, excuse you, she loves books almost as much as I do. Welcome to another episode of Bailey the Bookman. Right before Christmas there, we started a little thing kind of titled 5 of My Favorite Things About Books, Cars, whatever you like. I kind of like that. We did, the one I did was on Charles Dickens, and I'm going to do another one today because I'm just finishing up a book repair here, and I have to wait for the glue to dry, so while we're doing that, let's go over and I'll show you 5 of my favorite things, books about books. When I first decided to get into book selling, and I didn't really. I was just kind of collecting books and trading books, and I just loved to go out and hunt and look for them. And I started ending up with more books than I could actually use in my own collection. And then, so what do you do with them? So I started thinking about, this was before online internet selling had started. It was just right kind of the transition point between the old school book selling, which was all catalogs, or you go to a store and you actually look at the books on the shelves, and this new enterprise that was starting on the internet where you could go and look for a book and perhaps find what you were looking for. So I had found this book. Here, I'll show you which one. Yes, Dixie. Yes, we're going to look at books. She loves books almost as, excuse you, she loves books almost as much as I do. So this is the book that I had found, called Book Finds: How to Find, Buy, and Sell Used and Rare Books by Ian C. Ellis. And at that time, it did not have the newly revised, updated, and expanded, including a new chapter on the internet. So this book was going to help me discover how I could, get started. And they talk about things, the old romantic aspects of book hunting and book dealing. So there's, of course you have to talk about, for God's sake, maybe it's time for a new phone, Samsung. So condition, scarcity, the art of book trading, spotting trends, and what's hot, what's not, what authors should you look at, signed editions, autographs. Those were always the things that really kind of appealed to me, and still do. Talked a little bit about book repair and cleaning and so forth, which was not as important to me then as it has become over the years. So this was an excellent book, and I still had a full-time day job and all of that stuff, and this is the fine little book, thank you Mr. Ellis, that kind of planted that seed for me to be a book scout. So some of the books we have here, some are fiction, some are non-fiction, mostly non-fiction, such as Printer's Error by J.P. Romney and Rebecca Romney. John Dunning, Book to Die. It's a mystery introducing the detective and book collector Cliff Janeway. And Mr. Dunning ended up writing a series of these, and they're all so much fun. A Gentle Madness by Nicholas A. Basbins. This is a very, very cool book. I just love this book. It's about bibliophiles, bibliomaniacs, and the eternal passion for books. Doesn't get any better than that. And there's Ellis's book we just looked at. I kind of put these ones together because they are about books and bookstores and stuff, and they're kind of fun. So, How to Avoid Huge Ships and Other Implausibly Titled Books. Scouts in Bondage. Had a kind of an awkward encounter with a customer over that one. Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops. This is hilarious. I've had the odd thing here and there, but nothing like I've read in this book. And then The Protocols of Used Bookstores, a guide to dealing with certain perils which could be encountered in a used bookstore. I wonder what kind of perils those might be. And it's not a book, it's a magazine. It's called Fine Books and Collections. Outstanding magazine, and Mr. Basbins now writes for this magazine, but it's just full of articles and sales and catalogs and who's selling what and what's really cool, who's collecting, and it comes, I think, I want to say quarterly, and I can't wait for it to show up. Anyways, it fits in here somewhere. Okay, let's go have a quick look at Printer's Error. I love watching those TV shows that you see so many of these days. I guess it all kind of started at the Antiques Roadshow way back when, but American Pickers is one. There was a Canadian version of that, which was what's the pawn one? For heaven's sakes, I'm drawing a blank. With Rick and all the boys and stuff. On that show, here, they're going to tell us here, Pawn Stars. Sorry, I'm getting old. On Pawn Stars, somebody would bring in a book and they say, oh, it's a first edition of, Shakespeare. Right, sure. Or some famous title, and it was worth, $100,000. So, not really being experts for the most part, Rick would call in their book expert, and as it turned out, it was a young woman named Rebecca Romney, and she has printed or published this book called Printer's Error, and it is a really, really a fun book, and talks about the effect of print on the book itself, on the content of some books, and how back in the day, the size of type, the availability of type. Mrs. is a Rebecca Romney fan too, aren't you, Mrs.? And all those sorts of things. So it's irreverent stories from book history, and just the kind of stuff I love. And Miss Romney is very knowledgeable, knows her stuff, and is really kind of leading the way for the, current modern book collector and so on and so forth. Anyways, check this book out. It's really good. So a few years back, as my interest in books and book collecting and all things book was kind of growing exponentially, I came across, I can't even remember how or when, Nicholas A. Basbins, an authority on all things books, and I came across his book called A Gentle Madness. And here, I'm going to show you the first paragraph, which, being from Alberta, I went, what? This is awesome. Here, I'm going to show you. I mean, it's a beautiful book unto itself. I just love the look of it. And, the old way back when photograph of the bibliophile working in the library. But I managed to track this copy down, and lo and behold, yes, it is signed. I love that. So the book talks about, the passion to possess books has never been more widespread than it is today. Obsessive book collecting is the only hobby to have a disease named after it. And gentle madness is kind of the polite way of calling us bibliophiles bibliomaniacs. So they're here. I said the first paragraph. So in the prologue, he talks about a brisk wind Midwestern farmers call the Alberta Clipper swept through the frozen cornfields of Iowa one January morning. So it mentioned Alberta, where I live here, St. Albert, Alberta, and had me right from the get-go. So Mr. Basbins talks about the history of the book, of book collecting, how it has driven some people to madness, gentle or otherwise, some of the old-time collectors, how book collecting came from Europe and came to North America and essentially is a worldwide phenomena now. And as I mentioned, you can read monthly in Fine Books and Collections, Mr. Basbin's column. I highly recommend it. So I do have a small mystery section here in the store. It's a few shelves long, and this is where you would find my favorite bibliophile author, if you will, and fictional stories of a Denver detective, Cliff Janeway, who is an avid book collector and a police detective. And Mr. Dunning ended up writing, I think it was 5, 6, 4, 5, I can't remember exactly, different Cliff Janeway adventures, and they are all just awesome. Again, can't highly recommend that enough. You combine a mystery story, book collector, and really excellent information. Mr. Dunning operated, I'm not sure if he still does or not, a bookstore in Denver, Colorado, very famous bookstore. And he took that knowledge that he had accumulated over the years, and he had written some other books prior to the Cliff Janeway series. So took those two skills as a writer and a bookman, and came up with this excellent series. And it's called Booked to Die. Again, you want to check that one out. Books have been in print now, well, with the printing press, for hundreds of years now. So you can imagine that there has been a book published and printed on just about any and every subject that you could possibly imagine, and then a couple of more. This book is going to show us some of the more improbable books. As we saw, how to avoid huge ships and other implausibly titled books. Here's just a quick sample of some of them. Do-it-yourself brain surgery and other home skills. Crochet your own suspension bridge. There it is. Do-it-yourself brain surgery. You only get one shot. Ooh, gee. Wood carving with a chainsaw. Actually, Walkin' Dixie, one of our neighbors, does this exact thing with old dead trees in the front yard. It's quite cool. Reusing old graves. I'm not sure what you would use them for. Fancy coffins. Of course, who doesn't want one of those? Confessions of a Pagan Nun. After the orgy. Toward a politics of exhaustion. I don't know what that's about. Tattooed mountain women and spoon boxes of Dagestan. Well, who doesn't have that in their library? Come on. How to, poop in the woods. That was actually a very popular book. Weird things customers say in bookshops. This is a hilarious book, and it comes primarily from British booksellers. And it's true stories. The customers that walk in and ask strange things, such as this one. Customer, hi, can I bring my dog inside? Bookseller, sure. There's a sign on the door that says that friendly dogs are allowed. Customer, well, she's not that friendly. She might bite people. Well then, please leave her outside. I've had people come in and think that the store was a library. That's actually not uncommon. People, have you read all of these books? Those are some of the kind of different things that people come in and ask me about. This one is very interesting. The protocols of used bookstores. A guide to dealing with certain perils which could be encountered in a used bookstore by David Mason. This, again, is hilarious. And this is an edition of 300 copies, July 2010. Again, published by Dave Mason, Fine and Rare Books, located in Toronto, Canada. So here's one of my favorite ones, number 11. So when coming into a shop for the first time, please try to avoid announcing loudly that you are a book lover. The proprietor understands that to mean you aren't going to buy anything. Real book lovers rarely feel the need to stress the obvious. They demonstrate their devotion by going straight to the books. No real book lover has ever left a bookstore without buying a book. I can't stress that enough. This one might be a little hard to track down, but it's worth it if you do happen to find it. Okay, so this one, Scouts in Bondage and Other Violations of Literary Propriety. So young fellow came in and asked me, did I have any books about scouting or Baden-Powell? And I don't know what came over me, but I kind of picked this off the shelf and I said, well, I have this one. It's called Scouts in Bondage. The young fellow looked at me and just kind of turned a bit red and said, no, that's not exactly what I'm looking for. Anyways, that was probably very inappropriate on my part. So here's some of the other titles. How to Recognize Leprosy. Invisible Dick. Remember, we saw this book in the... oh my God, I can't think of anything today. The Bookstore in Regina, the whole collection of Dick books. Well, this was one of them that was there. Girls' Interests, Snakes, sure is. Welsh in a Week, A Rapid Method of Learning Welsh by Means of Conversation. How to Speak Japanese. I don't think you could learn Welsh in a lifetime. Memorable Balls. Fairies I Have Met. Well, certainly we could all contribute to that one. So these are some of my favorite books about books. Of course, the Invisible Dick book collection was at Spafford Books in Regina. Actually, we did a whole episode about our visit to that wonderful bookstore. So I just wanted to clarify that point. Anyways, that's our quick version of 5 of my favorite books about books and book collecting. Hope you enjoyed that. I would encourage you to find any or all of those titles if you have an interest in bookish type things, which I assume you do if you're watching this. Enjoy them. Maybe we'll do this again, and I'll find some other ones that we can talk about and expand, because I do have... all of these shelves are all booky type books. Anyways, that's this episode of Bailey the Bookman. We'll see you on the next one.